Have you ever seen one of these? This contraption has built up a lot of hype in its nearly 200 years of existence, and it seems like every YouTuber in the coffee industry has done a video on one. What I wonder though is if the Siphon brewer is all theatrics and fanfare, or if it actually produces a good cup of coffee. Today on Coffee or Die, we're going to answer that question. This is a siphon brewer, also called a vacuum pot, and it was technically invented in the 1830s by a German playboy named Loaf. However, it was the French who ashed their cigarettes on that design, slurped down a quick croissant for stamina, and invented their own model. In 1841, the first commercial vacuum brewer, with its signature double balloon chambers, is patented by Madame Vassou of Lyons. Today, Haruo, Japan, being the self-proclaimed king of glass, has become the primary distributor of these devices, and the coffee Takumi of Japan has an entire ritualistic process around the siphon, much like a tea ceremony. But how exactly does it work? Well, the best way to explain that would be to simply brew with it. First, you'll notice that this has a little burner directly underneath it. This is filled with highly flammable JP7 jet fuel, which the SR-71 Blackbird can consume 36,000 to 44,000 pounds of during an hour of flight. Sorry, the last bit of information was actually for my other job. What we're going to be using today is denatured alcohol, which I've got right here to fuel this burner. Next, we're going to fill this bottom chamber with exactly 200 mils of water. But the trick here is that I've pre-boiled it in order to conserve fuel and to bring the water up to temperature faster. Measure it out. Pre-boiled. Separating our chambers. Pop that lid off real quick. Oh God. Oh God. Pour this into the bottom chamber. Very nice. Now, let's turn our attention to the top chamber. What I've got inside of this little glass stem here is going to be this filter. Pop that in. There we go. Now what I've got dingle-dangling in the stem here is a nifty little dingle-dangler. This dingle dangler can be hooked to the bottom of the stem right here in order to hold our filter in place. Now let's put our bottom and top chambers together, and then we can add coffee. Next, 15 grams of coffee ground pretty fine, or around 600 micron. Do a little bit of RDT. Get those nice and wet. Wet your beans. Probably make sure I have the right grind setting on my Comandante. You know, here's a nifty little trick. If you want to go back to zero, you actually just put your fingers right here and you turn it. Now it's back to zero. Isn't that sweet? Okay, now 1, 2, 3. And supposedly you can hold this here, and if you do one full rotation, it's 12 clicks. I don't know if that's accurate. I think it is. I literally just work here. Beans go into the grinder. Grind. Any day now. If you want to be a little sophisticated, you can hold your pinky out. That is how I like to drink espresso, and sometimes I grind like that. There we go. All right. And our 15 grams of coffee in. With that done, the table is set, and we're ready to light this thing up and get this ball rolling. First, let's put this top chamber in an angle, and then we'll grab a big old Bic and light it up. But before we do that, do me a favor and like and subscribe to Coffee or Die. For every new subscriber we get, I'll personally set fire to the rain, which is not only a #1 Billboard song by Adele, but a nifty analogy to the use of napalm. Now, when we notice the water starting to boil, we're going to secure the top chamber to the bottom one. Things are going to happen pretty quickly, so we have to really pay attention during this part. Steam generated inside the bottom chamber is going to start driving water into the upper chamber, and that's where all of our coffee is. While this is happening, I'm going to briskly agitate in order to increase the rate of extraction. Once all the water is in the top chamber and about a minute has elapsed, I'm going to remove the heat source and once again agitate the slurry. As the bottom chamber cools, it's going to create a vacuum and pull the brewed coffee through the filter, down the stem, and into the bottom chamber. All right, water boiling. Create the seal. Seal's created. Brisk agitation. Beautiful. Gonna let that keep going for a minute. All right, about a minute has elapsed. One more quick swirl, removing heat source. Continuing that good agitation. Now what we can do, if we want this to cool down a little quicker, we can rub the bottom of this with a towel. And there it comes. That's so cool. All right, now what I'm gonna do, bam, too easy. Set that off to the side. This is secure. And now it's just pour a nice little cup. Look at that, quite lovely. That smells quite nice too. What's the result? Let's find out. Coffee that's clean, bright, almost reminiscent of a French press in terms of body and acidity. Overall, it's a pretty good cup, but was it worth all that effort? I think that while this has a long history, and while it's incredibly cool to operate, it's not doing anything that you can't do using simpler brewing methods. The coffee's good, sure, but I can absolutely brew better using more modern immersion techniques that don't require elements of steam pressure or vacuums. The amount of time and resources it takes to make one cup here is excessive, but it doesn't end there. You still need to clean all of this after you're done using it, and it's not as simple as the other rinse and forget methods that you may use with other modern brewing devices. You actually need to maintain this equipment, then store it somewhere that you won't fucking break it later. I've broken at least 5 of these, with at least 2 of those being on purpose and out of anger. So, is it hype or is it the best brewer ever? Personally, I see this as just a really theatrical way to make coffee using an uncommon technique. That doesn't mean it's bad though. If there's one piece of advice I can give you, it's that looking cool is the most important thing in life. On that note, I'd love to know what you think, so please leave a comment below telling me about your experiences with the Siphon brewer. That's all I've got for now, but I want to say thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Coffee or Die.